I'll tell you why emotional men are a problem to society. We've been told in today's day and age to stifle masculinity, revert to your emotions, feel more. And there's nothing wrong with feeling emotions, but acting upon it is a different discourse in and of itself, which is heavily encouraged, especially in places like the West. But when a man reverts and acts upon his emotion, we get school shooters, gangsters, rapists, abusers. In fact, on the subject of the R word, a huge percentile of men, when they see a lady, if they were to act upon that emotion, there is going to be a problem. For real. In fact, this is a very good example, this particular story I'm about to highlight. The Trojan Empire fell as a consequence of an emotional prince. I'll tell you the story. King Priam found his lost son, Prince Paris, sent him on a diplomatic journey to a neighboring kingdom. In essence, the prince was supposed to fall in with the princess of the kingdom, further strengthening their allied forces. You know how it used to be in those days. Arranged marriages in an attempt for power and to broker peace. He went there. He did fall in love, but with the queen of the kingdom, which in some renditions claim to abduct her. In some renditions, she freely eloped with him. Arriving at the regime, presented her before the royalty, and they quickly objected. This would cause war. The king of that country would come here. It would cause mayhem. People would lose their lives. They gave him the consequences. They stated the consequences of his actions. And guess what he did? Absolutely nothing. He persisted. He would defend his princess. He would defend his queen. As predicted, the neighboring nation came with the whole weight of their allied forces. They came with a proposition: give us back our queen, and this is what we desire of you. You have spat in our faces. It was disrespectful to steal our queen from us. In other words, they gave a proposition that would hurt their economy, of which they promptly declined, and war eloped. Before we go to the conclusion of the story, I want us to examine what transpired, that people lost their lives, people lost limbs, children were starved, people were orphaned just because one man acted on his emotions. But no, we shouldn't care about all of that. We should worry more on how he feels, and he got to feel better. At least something good came out of it. To cut the long story short, they lost the battle, and the queen played a fundamental role in the loss of the kingdom. She opened the gates for the two opposing sides to come in with the promise they won't harm anybody. Once they opened up the gates, they invoked mayhem on the palace. So the Trojan Empire, an empire that's existed for thousands of years, people were sacked from their city. People were burnt to the ground, all because someone felt like This is a clear example that when men act on their emotion, it leads to nothing than chaos and mayhem. Men have the monopoly on force, and men, unfortunately, have consequences. They reap the consequences of their action in real time. Make reference to my previous video. I just recorded it now, so I'm yet to decide on the title, but it will be linked in this description. But make reference to that video. There, I expound women. Okay, yeah, women are dumb. That's the title. Women are dumb. In that video, I expound how women are alienated from consequences because of how they look. And you know this, literally, a lady comes to borrow something from your apartment, she fucks it all up, she screws it. You do not yell, you do not get angry, you're just like, alright, I'll fix it. Conversely, if it was the opposite sex, you borrowed something, he brings it back in a less original shape. You would get mad, you would swear, you would curse. This is the last time I'll give you something. Let me just make it clear. And you get upset visibly. On one hand, you see how you encourage bad behavior in women. So women are dumb. Always walk in the consciousness of that, and you'll be fine. So emotional men shouldn't exist. As a man, you should be stoic and disciplined. There are times of which I feel fear, and whether I feel fear is none of my business. But I do not let it dictate my activities. I do not let it dictate my outcomes. There are times where this YouTube channel was lacking. We are getting little to no views. I mean, between the 0 and 5 views range, it was heart wrenching to stand up and create these videos. It was painful, yet day after day, I gave it my best. I gave it my all. I did every single thing I could to increase the value I provide daily. So you shouldn't act on your emotion. Engage in this principle and you'll be fine. As always, my friends, a pleasure speaking to you. I'll see you in the next one.